Good morning. One of the important things for women to consider for themselves is to love themselves, love their bodies more than their cars, and go to doctors periodically and get checks done, and not only and not wait for that one time when there is a health issue. If there are scares like little scares like hyperacidity, the stress, talk to people concerned. And one of the things that I was reading in a journal of Indian Medical Association is that Indian women report cervical cancers more often than not at stage 3, and this can happen between the age of 21 and 45, and apparently 58% of Indian women, and as against 21% Western women, report cervical cancers at a very late stage. So that's something that we need to take care of our bodies. The second thing that again a newsroom experience is that something about which Anisha has also spoken is ownership, taking ownership for what you do, and the fact that one should consider the fact that what they are doing is their product, and hence the buck stops with you. So care for your baby and take ownership, like I take ownership for my stories. If I have been driven to a spot for a story and my driver doesn't make it on time and I miss my subject, I should be able to say, well, I was on the spot, I was the reporter, and hence I missed it. I should not pass the buck on to a reporter or another reporter or an intern who may have gone with me. And it is a very important thing for me to take ownership for things that I do. The third thing, of course, another thing that comes from the newsroom is that making an impact with your appearance. Well, in the Western countries, we see that a 70-year-old anchor sitting next to a 30-year-old female, a 70-year-old male anchor sitting next to a 30-year-old women anchor, because women, when they reach 50s, they're told, well, you don't look good enough to be on air, so we will take you off air. She may be competent, she may know her subject. So I'm not saying, I'm not buying into the prejudice that women always have to look better and take care of themselves. But if they took care of themselves and if they turned up well for the job, more often than not, they will be in that position of power. And to end, I would just like to read out a quote from Angelina Jolie, her address to the UN in the Africa Summit. She said, "We need politics for long-term security that are designed by women, focused on women and executed by women, not at the expense of men or instead of men, but alongside men." She also says, "There is no greater pillar of stability than a strong, free, and educated woman, and there is no more inspiring role than a man who respects and cherishes women and champions their leadership." Thank you.
If I did have an image for my first question, I think it would be a circle of life. And my question really is, how do we keep women on track? If I look back at my own life, I can vividly picture when I was 7 years old in the playground spinning around and thinking, wow, the world's a big place, there's lots of opportunity, I can do anything. And then as I went through life, I think puberty is a big area where a lot of women falter, there's peer pressure. Then they rally and they do brilliantly in their exams, enter the workforce. If I look at when I graduated, I joined a company on a graduate trainee scheme, cable and wireless. There were 3 women, 9 men. And that's when it starts. And then there were no senior women really when I started working. There were no role models. So it's kind of, you have to propel yourself, but you also need support. What I wanted to say there is, in countries like India, there is a lot of support domestically. Sometimes I wonder why women stop working. I had a lady come to me and she was in my team and she said, well, she wasn't in my team, "I would like to join your team because you're a woman and I've seen that you always leave at 5 o'clock. And I'm thinking of getting married, so it's going to be very important that I can leave on time." So she didn't, I said, "Have you met someone?" "No. But it's the plan. This is what I'm going to be doing." She's still not married, and that was 6 years ago. So I know we've said this in different ways, but keep going until you consciously choose to stop. I know I made that mistake. Keep on track, keep taking the opportunities. How do we support women to take the opportunities that come their way and recognize that they can do them? I remember once I was on holiday and my boss, who was a Frenchman, rang up and said, "I'd like you to be the director of business planning." And I became very nervous. I thought, oh, can I do that? And my friend luckily turned to me and said, "Of course you can do it, just say yes." A man wouldn't think twice. So, how do you motivate yourself? How do you get those role models? I've had the misfortune to spend relative misfortune, in terms of what I'm going to say, to spend 19 years of my career in India, Germany, and Japan, which, as you know, are the 3 lowest places for women to rise in the workforce. And that's been an eye-opener. And when I went back to the UK and saw lots of women on the floor, I thought, I was a bit intimidated. I was looking at them as a Japanese might look at them. And I suppose my point there is, things change. If we look at the UK, women or girls are outperforming boys in exams now. So, intellectually wise, intelligence-wise, they're outperforming the boys. Now, what I want to see is, how does that continue? How do the women keep on track throughout their lives? So that's my number 1 question. The number 2, which is hugely important to me, is how do we eliminate the subliminal and the overt messages? So really the subliminal messages. And I'll give you a few examples. So I was going through my son's English book. So he goes to an Indian school, he goes to Sri Ram school, and there was a poem. The writer of the poem was a woman. The poem didn't mention a gender. It was, the child did this, the child went to the quiet place, the child came out of the quiet place. It's about the child. The question was, what did the little boy do in the poem? And there's no mention of the gender. Why do you assume it's a little boy? And it made me angry. And then again, my son came home with his holiday homework. Who are the members of your family? Mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, maternal grandmother, maternal grandfather. Oh, okay, so the father side is fine. That doesn't need to be stated, that's a given. But it has to be stated that it's a maternal side. So how are we giving messages, And I don't have a TV connection in India because I was sick to death of seeing the caring wife wiping the sweat off, the son who doesn't know how to wash his face properly, So, and I'm not just saying India. Japanese women, when you're 25, you have to be married. If you're 26, they call you a Christmas cake. You're past your sell-by date, right? Cinderella. Oh, I must have a Prince Charming, Rapunzel throws down her hair. So when I read these, I do read these stories, but I usually get a modern-day version where Rapunzel is also a qualified lawyer, or, she has her own business and she doesn't want to get married until she's graduated, So I try and make my children, my boys, understand about equality. So that's my second question. My third would always be about diversity and how do we get men to appreciate the value of diversity. So I run a course at the IOD, communication for board members, effective communication for board members. And generally speaking, there might be 2 women, 15 men in the session. And I asked the question, according to a study that was carried out globally, why do boards that are high-performing companies have more women than, ones that don't perform well? So I asked the question to the audience, why is it that women help companies perform better? And you know what the main answer that comes back is? Because when women are around, men behave better. Okay? And sadly, that is correct. Sadly, that's true. I find that sad. The other thing that's really important is women ask tougher questions. They ask tougher questions. They're not afraid to maybe look a bit silly, unknowledgeable. They ask the tough questions, maybe. So they're my 3 questions.
Thank you, Andrea. Right, so my three insights. The first one is related to what Anisha said and something that I said early in the morning when we started the kicked off the sessions, is around ecofeminism. It is really around, if we look at nature and what an amazingly elegant system nature's created. And look at the world that we've created here today we sit on. And so there is a nature's ecosystem, then there is this whole human economicus that sits on top of it, the economic being that we've created. You know, and it's clumsy compared to what nature's done. Look at nature, cyclical, you know, a waste of one species becomes the food of another species, and so elegantly designed. And here we have created a linear system. On one side it hogs resources, on the other side creates a dump. We don't know what to do about it. Subprime happens in the US, Greece happens there. Such a precarious kind of a system, clumsy system, based on who exploits better. Organizations competing with each other to exploit better. Look at the terms and the idiom that is used: penetration, reach and capture and dominate and kill and beat and be ruthless. Somewhere nature doesn't speak this kind of language. Gone is, surely, I mean, this has brought us this far. We are not in a bad state, not that bad, but we are not doing very well either. So somewhere, thanks to that kind of macho thinking, we've come here. Maybe we need another fundamentally different way of thinking going forward, and that maybe is something that's second nature to half of this humanity. And that half of the humanity must take that initiative and take the lead, because the rest of them are waiting to be led. Maybe they don't look like, but they will follow maybe. So that's around ecofeminism is the first one. The second one is around success parameters. I think Anurag spoke about it. You know, what are the success parameters? I think also time has come now to question our success parameters. Look at the way we are even bringing up a whole generation of people who are competitive. Who's successful? Someone who makes a lot of money, someone who is articulate, is very out there, has a swagger, and speaks a lot. I mean, there are ways we define success. Are we all trying to clone ourselves to that? And when I say we, I don't mean women, all of us. I mean, what do we tell our child when the child's growing up? It's a competitive world out there, which means we are trying to tell the child, you're not good enough. Unless you work hard, you're not doing well. So day by day, he learns physics, he learns chemistry, but he also learns the fact that he's not good enough, he's deficient. And what do we have? A successful person who's learned physics, chemistry, and math, but is self-worth deficient maybe. Maybe doesn't have a very I mean, why do we have people at 45, head honchos, who others are so envious of, so jealous of, would give their left and right leg or hand or limb to be that? But in their vulnerable moments when they sit down and they say, this is not it. This is not it. Looking back, it's been futile. I mean, is this what I really lived my life for? I mean, people feel I'm successful, inside I feel hollow. Why do we have a whole generation of people, you know, monks who sold their Ferrari kind of a thing, you know? And do we have to live till 45 to realize that we've led a futile life? Now, if half of the humanity defined that as success, why is the other half wanting to be that when they are not? In fact, at 45, they realize they'd rather been, I mean, look at the retired man when he comes back home. Till the time, I mean, I remember, I would hear people in my class would say, my father's gone on tour. I would wonder what this tour is. I mean, we would call it tour that time. Papa tour pe gaye. So, tour ye hota kya hai yaar? Where do they go? They just go somewhere, they do something really serious shit, right? And dad comes back, my father was in the Air Force, I mean, all uniformed, come back in uniform, say, wow, what a dad, I mean, he looks amazing. And when the father retires and comes, so you live in that, and they keep the myth, you know, hum tour pe jate hain, bade kaam karte. All of you understand Hindi, I guess. बहुत बड़े काम करते हैं, and everyone believes they get the money back home, right? They're doing something amazing. They return after retirement, and then because they're sitting around and say, okay, so you're sitting, why don't you chop the vegetables? And you see, he's clumsy. He's not able to do that well. And then Mother's amazing at relationships, you know, uska birthday, get in touch with mama, with chacha, and the guy is clumsy. I mean, he can't even do that. He's never done it. He's unidimensional. He only knows how to make money aggressively, competitively, ruthlessly. And here's a mother who's bonded and amazing, creating magic moments after magic moments. And this guy seems past by his use-by date. Totally irrelevant suddenly. And then depression. Wow, I've lost my relevance. Somewhere people who've actually lived that authentic life are trying to be like that. Amazing. I mean, somewhere we need to really question the success parameters. Is that success? And my last one, again related. Do women have to go through the whole long route of doing all the futile stuff in hindsight, which will seem futile? It seems urgent and important today. Boss is calling everyone, shut up, even if it's Sunday. Hello, it's family time. Boss can wait. No, but no. Boss means everyone knows. It's a cue, everyone gets boss. Means everyone, shut up, boss calling. I mean, do women have to go through this whole route that men have taken to come to where everyone wants to be? Or is there a shortcut? It's like the environment question, where we say, if everyone were to live the good life that US lives, we'll need 5 planets, right? Now that they've lived that life, they expect India and other emerging markets to quickly say, we'll start scrounging right now. We don't want to have our Pepsis or burgers or etc. etc. But India says, no, we want to do all that. And then we want to start living the frugal life. But do we have to? We don't need to go through that silly route. And do the women have to take the same route, is the question. Is there a more elegant, more mature route than that clumsy route that those guys took? That's my third one.